Hello and welcome to Newscentre. I'm Parikshit Luthra. Ritu Singh joins me from the Bengaluru studio. After multiple extensions, the Reserve Bank's tokenization norms are finally coming into effect from the 1st of October. The central bank believes that the tokenization transition will prevent misuse of sensitive information that we share with merchant websites while making a transaction using debit or credit cards. Ritu, for the benefit of our viewers, in short, what is tokenization?
Well, as per RBI's mandate, tokenization is going to replace your sensitive payment credentials or the details of your 16-digit credit and debit card number with a unique ID, which is going to be called a token. You can use this token for making any online payments without actually having to fill in your 16-digit card number each time you make a transaction. The RBI norms also mandate that merchant websites can no longer save this card information. Only banks and authorized card networks can do so. For customers, the benefits are two-pronged. First, a quicker checkout experience and an extra layer of security for your card details. So both ways, it is a win for customers. Perhaps not the same story for merchants.
Right. This looks good on paper, Ritu, but is the industry ready? We will discuss that and much more with our guests. Let's introduce everyone. Vishal Mehta, Chairman of Merchant Payments Alliance of India, is with us. Ashish Agarwal, Vice President and Public Policy Head at IT industry body NASSCOM. Harshvardhan, Digital Payments Head at Policy Bazaar. We also have Aruna Sharma. We spoke to her a short while back, and we will be getting you her view in a while from now. But before we go to Aruna Sharma, Vishal, if I can come to you. Now, the RBI deadline on card tokenization has already been extended 3 times. It's unlikely that it would be extended again. What is your concern now about the industry readiness?
So the concern is two-pronged. First, we have 2 types of transactions if we look at all the merchants. One is the one-time transactions, which you do on your day-to-day shopping, on Amazon, Flipkart, or the e-commerce websites. And the other is recurring or subscription-based transactions, which would be on websites like Netflix, Microsoft, Google, and Policy Bazaar as well. While the one-time transactions, and when it comes to tokens, there are two aspects again. One is the provisioning of the token, and the second is processing of the transaction. While the provisioning seems to be working very fine, I think we have no challenges there. The processing of transaction on tokens for one time is still not to the level at which the PAN-based transactions were. It means when you entered the 16 digits of the card and the transaction was being processed, it's not to that level. We were seeing about 85 to 90% success rate, and right now we are only seeing about 60 to 70% success rate. So definitely it's going to impact business, especially for those transactions which have a shorter span of time in order to complete the purchase. When it comes to recurring transactions, we are even further not ready. There is no clarity for any subscription-based merchants on what is the readiness of the ecosystem for the recurring-based transactions. If you remember last year, there was an e-mandate-based regulation exactly on this date on October 1st. It got into effect after multiple extensions. And even to date, we see that it's been 1 year, but not every issuer or every bank is ready to process e-mandate transactions. And on top of that, now e-mandates will have to be processed on tokens, and the ecosystem is not ready for that. Even though a lot of payment systems are saying they are ready, but in reality, we haven't seen any concrete data to show that readiness. And as merchants, especially the subscription and recurring-based merchants, we are afraid what will happen to those transactions starting 1st October.
Right. That's a view coming in from the Merchant Payments Alliance of India. Let me also get in Harshvardhan at this time. Harsh, what are your key recommendations to the RBI at this juncture? What will happen if this what will happen on 1st of October as far as the customer interface goes? You're dealing with customers.
I think to begin with, the direction in which we are moving with respect to digital payments is a good one. The initiative taken in the recent past with digital payments have put the focus back on security while increasing the scale to a mammoth level. Our simple ask of the regulator is to enforce a graded action plan with any new guidelines. The graded plan would ensure phase-wise compliance at every level, enabling all the key players to be ready. This would go a long way in minimizing the impact on the end user. This is the only ask as far as merchant is concerned.
Well, Ashish, before I come to you, Harsh, a quick follow-up. At Policy Bazaar, what is your own readiness as a merchant? Have you deleted the customer's data yet, or are you hoping for yet another extension from the RBI?
So let me tell you that at Policy Bazaar, we do not store cards at our end. So we are dependent on the payment aggregators. And we are hoping and hopeful, and we are really positive that all the work which needs to be done at the payment aggregators end has already done. So we are only hopeful that things will work fine on 1st October.
Well, Ashish, what is the readiness of the industry? And I ask because this is not a new rule that has just been brought about to be implemented in a week or a month or a year's time. RBI has been talking about this since 2020. The tokenization guidelines came out last year. There have been multiple extensions. Why is the industry not compliant yet? What's the feedback you've been getting?
So one, I'll concur with the feedback that Vishal just mentioned in terms of the readiness. That's also our finding. But beyond that, to your point, card tokenization implementation is a complex, task. It involves multiple stakeholders, and just because somebody in the chain might be ready, doesn't mean that from a consumer point of view, the transaction can work end to end. And that's the challenge. So if you look at it from a tech industry perspective, there are a lot of SaaS service providers. There are all these OTT content providers. A whole lot of digital technology services are now on subscription model. So, and if you think of them as merchants, they are basically in two categories. One, who have their own payment infrastructure, the larger merchants, probably, and then like Policy Bazaar, who are relying, let's say, relatively on payment aggregators to provide that solution. So I think from a merchant point of view, the key expectation is that we want to avoid the grief, if I might use that word, of last year when we were implementing the e-mandate requirement, and how much we can avoid all of that. And what is needed is adequate testing experience. So just for example, even merchants who have payment infrastructure, the present success rate on recurring payment for them is roughly 30 to 40%. Now, that is not enough to give confidence to really, go live on 1st of October on this system. And for merchants who don't have their payment infrastructure, a lot of them don't really have visibility because they haven't been able to do any sort of meaningful testing itself. So I think from an RBI perspective, the fact that there have been 3 extensions actually demonstrates that RBI is listening to the industry and accordingly adjusting its own expectation on timelines. And the fact that they've given earlier some clarifications around guest checkout and international payments and all of that means that they understand use case and challenges. Now, what we are only hoping is that RBI would also realize that from the industry perspective, there has to be adequate testing experience before this can be actually implemented live in the market. Otherwise, from a merchant perspective, it actually leads to loss of business. So that is something that I think needs to be avoided at this stage.
Okay, Ashish, one more question. We've seen several banks, several card issuers. SBI, for example, has gone on to say that they are ready with the card tokenization rollout on the 1st of October. At the same time, most of their clients, most of the people they deal with are also ready, barring maybe some of the small merchant companies. So do you feel that this would be a small minority which is currently not ready?
So I think we have to go back to the point about what does readiness mean. So, for example, token provisioning is fine, as Vishal also mentioned, right? So it is the experience of actually running the both the one-time payment and the recurring payment, where I think there's some work which is happening in terms of optimization, which is still ongoing. The fact that we have 30 to 40% success rate, we don't know why is it. Is it because certain banks are not ready? Maybe that's one situation, but these are the things which RBI is best placed to examine from a regulator's perspective and make sure that before we actually go live, there is a significantly high level of success rate. So I think that's the stage we're in, and we're in a conversation with the RBI on this. We have written to them as early as this month And I think RBI has looked at it and said that we are observing and we are examining our representation. So we are hopeful that RBI will do what is needed.
Okay, we also spoke to Aruna Sharma, former secretary at the Ministry of Electronics and IT, for her take on tokenization and what really are her concerns.
The time was given for the readiness of the change of the system. And here in the change of the system, there are many players, right? So each of the players has to be completely ready for it. So this preparedness itself takes time. It's a complete change of system. So therefore, the seeking this extension was very logical. And today you are hearing that the banks are ready. Now all banks have to be ready. So we have to see whether the small banks are ready or not. There has to be a smooth transition to be ensured. And therefore, there has to be a proof of concept. That proof of concept has not happened. And those who are completely dependent on payment aggregators, they are still not ready, right? Then it is equally important that the merchant need access to the bank identification number. That will also take time by the time the whole thing is in sync. Therefore, there is no harm in giving another 5 to 6 months.
All right, that point is taken. It is a chain at the end of the day, and all players have to be ready for the system to work. We have to take a very short break on that note, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a moment to continue this discussion.